like to call the Prince William County School Board meeting to order. We will start the day at the request of Ms. Lori Williams of the Woodbridge District with a moment of silence. Thank you. For the Pledge of Allegiance today, we have Cub Scout Pack 1343 from Piney Branch Elementary School will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys would like to step on up here and you lead us in the pledge, you get us going, and then at the end, if you let us know, well, we know what school you go to apparently, but let us know your name and your grade and your school. Thank you. Mr. Iman has come prepared. Gentlemen, if you let us know your name, your grade, and your school, please.
Name and school. Step right on up.
My name is Giovanni, and I go to Piney Branch, first grade.
My name is Ethan, and I'm a second grader, and I go to Piney Branch Elementary School.
My name is Kai, and I'm a second grader, and I go to Piney Branch Elementary School. My name is Tobias, and I'm second grade, and I go to Piney Branch Elementary School.
My name is Seth, and I'm in second grade in Piney Branch Elementary School.
My name is William. I go to Piney Branch Elementary School. I'm in second grade.
My name is Ethan Bernier. I am in third grade, and I go to Piney Branch Elementary School.
My name is Brady Schaefer, and I go to Piney Branch Elementary School, grade 3.
My name is Daniel Nazo. I'm in third grade. I go to Chris Young Elementary School.
My name is Tyler Brand. I go to Piney Branch Elementary School, and I'm in third grade. Oh, and that guy right there, that's my dad.
Good stuff, Mr. Brand. Good stuff. Not that we can top that with the approval of the public meeting agenda, but that is unfortunately the next step in this meeting. So with that, we have item 10.01, approval of the public meeting agenda. Motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Williams.
I move that the Prince William County School Board approve the public meeting agenda as recommended.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Ralston.
I second.
Thank you. Those in favor of the motion, discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please signify yes by raising your right hand. Thank you.
Vote is 8 yes, unanimous. Motion passed.
Adoption of the adoption of the consent agenda. Motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Williams.
I move that the Prince William County School Board approve the public.
11.01.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay.
A public meeting consent agenda as recommended. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
No worries. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Satterwhite.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion. Those in favor of the motion, please signify yes by raising your right hand. Thank you.
Vote is 8 yes, unanimous. Motion passed.
Okay, moving on to citizens' comment time. I believe we had 3 total speakers sign up, 1 group speaker ahead of time, and 2 at the door. So we should be able to get through everybody here on the front end of things. Everyone can come up to the front row when it's your turn, when I call everybody here, and that way we can go right through it here. Before I call everybody up, I'll remind everybody of the rules. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. I will run the timer here from my computer. The time will be above the boards all over the room. At 30 seconds, you'll see it turn yellow. That means to wrap up your speech. And at 0 seconds, it turns red, and you'll be asked, and then it's time to step aside. Please use proper decorum at all times. If not, you'll be asked to step aside. With that, the order of our speakers, group speakers here would be John Zatowski, Joy Ducey, and Angela Montiero. Our second speaker is Bill Petrak. Third is Chuck Ronco. And then the handwritten one always gets me. John, it's the same? Okay, so we don't need to do that one again, right? Okay. And then then Robbie Koch. So you'll be up. So looks like 4 total speakers. So the first group is a joint speakers, students from Stonewall Middle School. It's your turn.
Hello and good evening. My name is Joycelia Doozy. The Library of Congress Ambassador for Young People's Literature, Mr. Jean-Louis Yang, visited our school in September. Mr. Yang was in our area to speak at the National Book Festival in September. Stonewall Middle School was one of the 2 schools he spoke at during his visit. I really enjoyed learning about coding, specifically when he taught us about what binary numbers are and what are some certain numbers in binary. For example, 7 is off, on, on. I also enjoyed learning about what was his inspiration behind his characters in Secret Coders. And last but not least, about his background and how he got into writing in the first place.
This was an amazing experience. I'm John Zakowski from Stonewall Middle School, by the way. I'm an 8th grader. This was an amazing experience meeting Mr. Yang, and the presentation talking about coding and all of his books. It was quite fascinating, the stories he could get across through graphic novels and just stories in general. We had PBS come in to interview us at the school, and it was fascinating the way that they use cameras, like the camera work and the microphones and the different shots they could get using, like they had this one shot of us laughing at something and they could just edit that in to different parts of this of the clips. The experience is basically life-changing.
My name is Angela Montero, and I'm from Stonewall Middle School. I felt honored to meet such a great author. I loved how polite and well-mannered he was. Although he saw some of us nervous, he created such conversations that got us engaged into what he was saying. I can definitely see the humorous, hardworking, and phenomenal personality he has being put into his work. In my opinion, his books are really great. I was never much of a comic book reader, yet his books inspired me to read more. I have read 3 books of his, American Born Chinese, Level Up, and Secret Coders. I loved how Level Up had a lot of reality and aspects of the book that were fiction, which contributed to the message of the overall story. American Born Chinese is one of the most unique, interesting books I've read. I love how 3 individual stories conjoined and gives a pop of sudden shock to the reader along the way. Secret Coders was more informing and instructive as you read the book. This book is filled with comedy and different unique characters, but has a mini lesson of coding throughout the whole book, I would say. The birds that represent the different numbers through coding was a very clever facet in the story. If I choose one book to be my favorite, it would be American Born Chinese. I am so thankful to have the opportunity to meet Mr. Yang and to be sitting here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Bill Petrak. Bill?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm Bill Petrak. I'm from Woodbridge. I'm here tonight to speak more about the politicalization of the school board. Now, I understand that when you run for a school board position, it's to your advantage to affiliate yourself with a political party. But once the election's over, it's time to get down to business of educating our kids. That hasn't happened this year. When a school board votes 5-3 on matters of importance, and when the votes are consistently along party lines, you're not doing the business of educating children, and you're not fooling anybody. I got to believe that you can't all agree 5-3 on all the important matters. Mr. Sawyers, I've learned a lot about you and your conduct over the past 10 weeks. Between holding back contracts, stirring the pot on a replacement for a deployed military board member, spending $500,000 on the renaming of a school, and just about upsetting every parent in the county over the non-discrimination policy. You've awakened the sleeping giant, and that's the concerned parents. And now you have to deal with www.recallsawyers.com. As I speak here right now, there are people outside the building collecting signatures for your removal. I was absolutely appalled when I saw the video and the pictures on www.recallsawyers.com. I saw a video of you speaking on the 5th of October at this board meeting about being socially responsible on social media. You talked about how you were a coach for 15 years, and any coach was worth their salt. They would check out their players and make sure they were walking the straight line, or you could lose your job. You said that if that didn't happen, it was what the college folks called lack of institutional control. And then you said it applied to you and your jobs here. And then I saw a picture of you making a post on Facebook about a year before you got elected that was absolutely appalling in the treatment of a woman on that Facebook page. And for that, you should resign for that alone. When I learned about that Facebook post and I saw that picture, that's when I decided to get involved. In the last year, you've obtained a reputation of being a bully and a tyrant. And I talked to a lot of teachers with that petition on Election Day, and you have absolutely scared them. And they wanted to sign that petition, but they're afraid of you, sir. And you've really done a disservice to the school and to the parents of the children of this school system. So www.recallsawyers.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Charles Ronco. Mr. Ronco. Chuck, in the room? No? Going once, going twice, not here? I don't see him either. Okay. Moving right along here to our last speaker, Robbie.
Test. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, speakers. My name is Robbie Cook. I'm class of 2017 president over at Forest Park High School, entrepreneur, hero. I'd like to take this moment to thank you for allowing me the time to speak here. It is very touching. I'd like to thank my history teacher, Ms. Garrity, for giving me the advice to show up here. At this time, also, I would like to thank Mr. Wilk, too, for his outreach over social media. He's been very active with our community, and I appreciate that. I would like to urge others to do the same. Although I'm not in your districts, I do recommend it. I think it is quite a way that you can reach out to the students and become a better part of their lives, even though it's maybe 4 to 6 years that you might handle them in some high schools at a mature level. I apologize for my dress. This is all I got. I didn't realize it was a suit and tie event. While we were talking about the social media, I'd like to direct your attention to the social media poll that went out earlier today over Inauguration Day. I've noticed that some are saying that you might go back on your promise that you made when President Obama was elected back in 2008 about giving us Inauguration Day off. Although the president that we have now may not be the same caliber, I do want to direct you back to the documents that you had before and to let us have this day off. Snow days are not really used, and we still go to school till 2:10 every day. So instead of wasting another snow day, just throw one for Inauguration Day, give us the day off, time to recalibrate our brains. That is all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, moving right along, we have we're moving on to item 13.01, the school planning capacity versus program capacity. Mr. Klein.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Darlington. The item before you this evening, if you recall over the past several years in particular, as we've gone through sort of the budget process, but more importantly the capital improvements process, or CIP, We've had a number of discussions relative to the fact that the amount of space that we plan for a building, how many students in a classroom, does not necessarily represent the program capacity of a building. That is how we're actually using it. So we've come forward this evening with an information and a discussion to provide you with information on how we will look at changing that process so that when we reflect the capacity of a building in our planning models, we can be dealing with what the program or more closer to the actual use of a building is, as opposed to what the potentially the architect's design or original plan was. Mr. Dave Beavers, Supervisor of Planning and Financial Services, will provide you with a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Chairman Sawyers, members of the school board, Ms. Darlington. It's nice to be here with you this evening. My name is Dave Beavers. I'm with the Office of Facility Services, and I'm here tonight to present you with a presentation on the development of the program capacity to measure how many students we should have in our schools. Well, all right, super, thank you. Okay, so we're currently using what we refer to as planning capacity when we rate the ability of each of our schools to contain students. Our desire was to develop a more accurate measure of how the schools are actually used. And we wanted to call that what the current program in the school was, so program capacity was a natural fit. By program capacity and by the program at the school, I'm referring to the K-3 class size reduction grant and the effect that that has on each of our schools, special education program locations, gifted education program locations, and pre-kindergarten programs. So each of these elements has an effect on how many students can fit into a school. We are only doing this tonight for you for elementary schools. We haven't yet looked in depth at middle and high schools. We intend to do that, just not at this point. This was such an intensive effort to look at specifically elementary schools, we had to focus on that. So to talk about our methodology and how we calculate a program capacity. First, we had to look at the physical building. We had to count up how many classrooms we had in each school. Then we look at the constraints imposed by the K-3 class size reduction grant. They're pretty significant in terms of how they limit the number of students in each classroom. So K-3 class size reduction grant is based on free lunch eligibility at a school over the last 3 years. And then those schools are stratified based on that eligibility level with limitations on the class sizes. So we look at class sizes ranging from 24 down to even 14. So it's a very significant impact on class sizes. It limits K-3 class sizes as well as the 4th and 5th grade class sizes too. So I've made a chart that I'll show you that'll explain exactly how that works. And you can see here in the leftmost column, it shows a school's free lunch eligibility percentage. Now, where a school falls on this chart in the categorization will dictate the required K-3 class sizes. So you see for the first category, free lunch less than 16%. The K-3 required class size ratio will be 24, with a K-5 maximum class size of 28. When we put those together, we end up with a net total for the whole elementary school of 25.33. Now, 25.33 is a little bit higher than what we've normally used at the elementary level. Our default is 24. So this 25 figure actually will give us additional space at some schools, as we'll see later. When we get to our schools with the highest level of free lunch eligibility, let's say free lunch 75% and above, we see that the limitations are very strict in terms of 14 students per K-3 class. and 19 students per K-5 class. Together, those give us a 15.67 class size ratio for the entire elementary school. Now, how the classrooms are used is very important to tell us how many students per classroom we can accommodate. We look again at how many classrooms the school has, and we have to take out any specialized use rooms. Now, by specialized use, I mean special ed, Head Start and Virginia Pre-K Initiative, gifted education, and then what we call fixed school resources. Music, art, and computer lab. All of those programs can be served in regular classrooms that we have to take out of our general pool. We take those classrooms out and use them for special ed, Head Start, gifted ed, and then those fixed resources. We can fit some students full-time in those special ed classes as well as the pre-K classes. After we take out those specialized use rooms, we're left with regular use classrooms that we can multiply by that student loading factor or net effective class size that we calculated before from the K-3 class size reduction grant. When we multiply that out, that gives us our total student program capacity at each school. All right, and I'll walk through an example so that you'll understand what we're doing. All right, and I did make this simple chart for you to use, but it's not really that simple. But this is, it's a complicated process to make sure that we take into account all the different facets of the programs at the schools that we're doing. So I could have shortchanged you and given you a really simple chart, but this chart is comprehensive and it does try to accommodate all the cases that we have. So I'm sure at your leisure you can have the opportunity to look at that. So when you go through that chart and we develop the calculations for the program capacity at the schools, we come up with some very interesting results, and I'll show you those results now. Okay, this first chart I'll show you is the schools in the division, the elementary schools, that in moving from planning capacity to program capacity saw the biggest decrease in capacity. So these are the schools that had the greatest negative effect on classroom space based on the programs that they have in place. And if we look at our list, you'll probably understand what I'm talking about. First, we look at Westgate Elementary. Their planning capacity formerly was 770 students. Our new program capacity is 516 students, or a decrease of about 33%. When you look at the specifics of Westgate's program, we see that their net effective class size is 15.7. And that's versus what the old class size was at 24. So almost a 50% reduction in the class size that we're using to calculate our program capacity. We also take out rooms for special ed, Head Start, gifted education, and any pre-K programs. So you can see when we go through the math, it drops that calculation of the capacity down to 516 students, which we feel more accurately represents how many students can actually fit into Westgate Elementary based on the program that they're offering now. Other schools that are significantly affected in the negative fashion by this new capacity figures: Featherstone Elementary, Carrydale Elementary, Dale City, Loch Lomond. All of the schools that you're seeing here have high percentages of free lunch eligibility, and that leads to those reduced class sizes that we're multiplying by to get our new capacities. Okay, now as I mentioned before, we also see a little bit of an increase on the other side. We see some larger limits on class size at these schools, we see 25.3 students per classroom, and that leads to a net increase in capacity. Patty Elementary increases from 698 students to 795, or an increase of about 13.9%. You can see the other schools there that also increase. All of them, you'll note in the far right-hand column, have a lower than average free lunch eligibility percentage. When we take all of these results and plot them geographically to see how this plays out over the county, we have this map that shows changes in capacity by elementary attendance area. Now, areas that are red indicate a larger decrease in capacity, moving from planning to program. Orange is a decrease from 14.2 to 23.5% decrease, and yellow is a 0 to 14.1% decrease. Now, as we move into the green areas, the light green indicates an increase of 0.1% to 4.5%, and then the dark green is an increase of 4.6% or more. So you can see geographically, this in many ways mirrors the free lunch eligibility percentage across Prince William County. All right, the next steps for us, we're going to use this information to update our regulation that details how capacity is calculated. It's Regulation 810.05-1. We're going to utilize these figures in our CIP development and also in boundary planning. As you know, we're in the midst of boundary planning on the eastern end of the county with Potomac Shores Elementary and the Kilby Elementary replacement. The utilization of these figures will allow us to more accurately tailor our boundaries to reflect what's truly happening in the schools with programs and restrictions on class sizes and special education and other programs that are in place. So we're very pleased to be able to implement these new figures because we feel that it'll be much better for the staff and for the community as a whole. We're going to update this annually, and we'll also be back in the near future to provide you with middle school and high school capacity revisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm just going to have one quick question, and I'll pass it along to the board. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice, which some may consider to be a good thing. But when you say you're to more accurately, with the Kilby replacement and Potomac Shores coming in, the thing you mentioned there at the very end, and this may not be a fair question to ask, so if you want to punt and if there's no real answer, I get that. How long, when you reboundary that way, how long do we consider that effective? Because obviously we can't control where school-age children live in the county, and they can move and come and go as they please and move around. How long do you consider that reboundering effective to this effect, to help with what you just discussed? How long does that reboundering kind of last, assuming no new elementary school in that area? How long do you expect that to kind of have that impact?
I'll try and answer your question,
Sure.
and you can redirect me if I don't answer it correctly.
Okay.
But with the new boundaries, we're looking at those enrollment projections into the future, and that take into account residential development and what we anticipate is going to happen, so that we're trying to, at the very least, design our boundaries for 3 years into the future.
Thank you. That's fair. That's what I was just trying to wrap my head around, how long that would affect it. Thank you very much. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start by saying thank you because I think this is a much more realistic picture of our schools, especially from my perspective, my poor Belmont. That's all I could think during your presentation. They make an art room permanently again with this type of capacity matrix. So my question is, now moving forward, and assuming this is the planning office will be adopting this permanently, what plans are there? You know, I'm always ready to jump the gun with this. Is so exciting. What are we going to do when we apply this formula to our existing schools and get the return results, do we have any plans for that, or has the planning office ventured down that road yet? I think this is a lot of work, so I wasn't sure if you'd start at next steps, just based upon what we know now.
When we looked at these results, and I think we had a very strong feeling that these were much more representative, as you said, of what's going on in the real world. And we felt these were so important that we wanted to implement these with our boundary changes in the Kilby, Belmont, Neabsco area right away. So we've actually shared this information in a draft version with our boundary planning committee so that they can take advantage of this information, design the boundaries for the eastern end of the county with this stuff in mind. When we reduce the capacity so drastically, we're going to get new boundaries that don't show, we're going to be balancing to a higher percentage until we get all of our schools built in the eastern end. But we're going to see very clearly where those overages are. And it's just going to be much more realistic in terms of how we're planning and moving forward into the future.
Well, I just want to say thank you again, because I know this will definitely help our schools that are, in my opinion, for lack of a better term, just simply overcrowded based upon the way the programs are and what the needs are. Not necessarily always student-wise, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Ralston, then Ms. Jessie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You used one of my schools, or two of my schools, and what interests me is that every time the boundaries change and they shift the line, you shift the line, so go students. Dell City Elementary School is one of those schools, and it's under capacity now. The free and reduced lunch is still high. So at some point, we have to stop shifting lines where it takes away students because they lose teachers and programs. The other thing I was interested in is, let me see, what's my other school? Neabsco. So they're both in that same category. But I think it's 2020, somebody can correct me, when all lines change, because that's what happens every 10 or whatever it is years here and everywhere else. So now you're going to shift schools again. At some point, we will have either shifted more children who are on free reduced lunch out to other areas. You'll actually be able to, at some point, see a reduction in that number. So what are your plans so that if I have 490 some, let me see, I have 490 some schools, but I would, defer to Mr. Bixby on the number exactly at Dell City. So what will you do to stop moving those particular kids constantly and shifting lines? And what would you do for the new schools that are built in order to put free and reduced lunch kids in?
So let's see if I can provide you with a decent
smaller if
answer.
You want.
Yeah. So these figures are going to make a school like Dale City. It's going to be an interesting challenge because a school like Dale City, I think we show that their capacity, the planning capacity they had was 496. Their program capacity, as we've calculated here, is 347. Which is significantly different. But when you look at the special ed programs that are in place at Dale City, when you look at the free lunch eligibility percentage there with the corresponding K-3 class size grant limitations on class sizes, that's being fair in terms of assigning that number, that if we put 347 students in that school, that would literally be full. Right now we're serving more than 347 students at Dale City. The way to deal with that overcrowding, we have a number of opportunities there. We look at, do we do portable classrooms in the interim, which we have. We look at building new schools, which we are. And when we do that, we then have to adjust the boundaries. we realize that it can be a traumatic effect on the community to adjust those boundaries. But it is our feeling that providing a balanced environment of crowding and overcrowding amongst all the different schools makes the experience for all students better, and that we're providing them with a more equitable environment in which to learn. So that's our job to try and do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ralston. Ms. Jessie.
The slides are interesting. The policies, there were just terms that I just want clarification. Loading factor, what does that mean?
In the sense of this discussion, loading factor is the resulting number of students that we can put in each regular classroom. Now, I apologize for the non-personalized effect that student loading factor carries along with it. But just going through this process, I had to make up a lot of terms to make this make sense.
Yeah.
So forgive
colors.
me for
Okay,
my
sure.
discretions or indiscretions.
Okay. And regionally eccentric school facility.
Well, so centric meaning centralized. If we look at how gifted education programs are provided and delivered,
Okay.
we have some schools that have sufficient gifted education populations that they can have an in-school classroom designated for gifted education. There are some schools that have to pool together to do a center-based program for gifted education, where multiple schools are contributing students that they take the bus to a centralized elementary school for those students to receive those services.
Regionally.
Yes. Thank
net
you for...
effect, average class size? Net effect?
Yes, because, now this...
I'm sorry. I was trying to read this, and I just had a few challenges, and
Yes. So the attempt there is to say that the K3 class size reduction grant limits us to a K3 class size maximum, but it also says that 4th and 5th grade have to be within certain limitations as well. So when you combine the effect of K3 and 4-5, you come up with that net effective K5 class size.
the difference between capacity and space availability, is there a difference? I guess I'm asking because with the K3 grant, and if you have to, by law, in order to receive the grant, have a class size of 15, let's say. So that means that you now have probably another 5 classrooms, so that it reduces class size, but it creates a space capacity. I'm trying to get the terminologies.
Right. So the capacity, we're saying the school can accommodate this many students with the limitations of the particular program. When we throw, say, our student body into the school, well, we wouldn't throw them, of course, but let's say we had 110 students in a 100-student school, then we'd know that we had negative 10 seats, or we had less space than, we had more students than seats.
Okay. I guess the question I have, and I'm sure it's a simple answer, I noticed that you have art and music, computer lab, either on the chart or somewhere in those 3 or 4 pages that you have.
Yes, ma'am.
And I noticed there, why is PE not one of those?
That's a great question. In terms of the context of our discussion, PE doesn't occur in a regular classroom. It occurs in either the gymnasium or the shared cafeteria gymnasium, or in the activity room, or some other place that I'm not counting as a regular classroom.
Okay. So I guess that begs the question to me of, are we making plans for those schools? Because I was in one of those schools where the auditorium was also the PE, and then we had to plan for that. You're still looking at space availability for that larger room.
I'm not counting it in capacity, but yes, we are looking at those in terms of equitability.
And my last question is science labs. Why science labs? Where do science labs play in this? Because there are schools that, the newer schools, have science lab, which means that those kids get more hands-on kinds of activities, project-based learning, what we call it. And those schools that don't have that, is that one of our considerations for all of our schools?
At the present time, we're not taking a deduct for those science labs. We're not taking that out of the pool of classrooms that are available for regular instruction.
Okay, I think I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. Anyone else? Mr. Deutsch.
Thank you very much for doing all of this work. I know when we were working through the Wilson boundaries, there were a lot of questions along this front with some of the back and forth that came, and so I'm very thankful that we have this and that that's going to be used for our numbers going forward. What is the, I guess the only question I have left, what is the timeline for us getting similar numbers on middle school and high school level? Understandably, that's a lot of work, but just curious what our rough timeline is on those.
That's a great question. I'd like to shoot for sometime this school year. That may be ambitious. I think in the end, we really have to learn exactly how middle schools and high schools are used. And there are some folks that we can tap into as resources who have experience at those levels. But as a planning team, we have to learn exactly how schools are being used. And I think this is what we had to do at the elementary level. We had to go in, look at the nitty-gritty details and figure everything out and understand how schools are being used. We're going to have to do the same thing at the middle and high school level. There are a lot more moving parts in the middle and high school programs, so we're looking forward to that, but hopefully by the end of this school year we'll have something for you to look at.
So, but if we're having these numbers in time for this year's CIP, it would be fair we'll at least have the middle school and high school numbers by the next CIP.
That's a great target, yes.
Which is when, I mean, probably the next time we really need those numbers aggressively, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. Ms. Satterwhite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank you and your staff for working on this, because this is something that I know we've talked about many times as we've changed some of the boundaries in my district, and I know especially some elementary schools that will greatly, greatly appreciate this. And I see the phrase, "It's about time." Well, thank you. It's time. I appreciate it. And I'm also looking forward to especially the high school. I know the challenges. I know with the different classroom uses, the different classroom offerings, I know it will be incredibly challenging, but as we continue to see the overcrowding of high school, especially in my district, I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. So thank you and your staff very much for the hard work on this. Much, much appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Satterwhite. Anyone else? I know I'm sorry, Mr. Brand. Oh, you're good? Okay, sir. Can't do that to me. That's Miss Williams.
Mr. Beavers, I'm a little confused.
I've done my job then.
I know. Well, I have these questions for you, and this has sort of been an ongoing issue for me, especially when we vote on building plans like we did for the last high school we voted on, and something that I had brought up prior to is when we decide to build a school, I tend to think of how we're using it, and we often are presented with how we're going to fill it and what we're going to put in it versus the use. And I know that that is an eternal debate between builders and users of things. Working for real estate developers and whatnot. So I'm intrigued for your timeline to maybe we could push it up a little bit further and how we the information coming to the board for the middle schools and for the high schools. For me, I think that information would help us to make better financially sound decisions. And for me, I would feel much more comfortable because I have been the person who's pushing for, even though we're putting on an addition, it doesn't help the students when they go eat lunch, or it doesn't help the students when they go to recess, or it doesn't help the students when there's, not the hallway hasn't been widened, but we have more people in there. So I'm a really big use consideration person. So that's why I was excited to see this. So I'm just wondering, I'm just going to put my push in there if we could get that sooner rather than later. I understand it's a lot of work, and I understand also that it is a different frame of mindset for a planning office versus everyone has their role. So I'm very glad that you're expanding that base of knowledge, but I would like to see it a little bit sooner, considering our overcrowding and the amount of additions and amount of things that are in our CIP. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Moving right along to Deputy Superintendent's time. Ms. Darlington.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyers. I'm delighted to sit in for Superintendent Waltz tonight as he is playing parent, visiting specialty programs. So it's wonderful to have the opportunity after 11 and a half years where he misses his first school board meeting. I want to make sure the board heard that. I'm compelled to send a message to Prince William County Schools community, our parents, our teachers, our students. We posted on our school web page, Prince William County Schools Still United. We will not let election-related divisions fracture our Prince William County Schools community. To that end, I would like to share with our county, with our board, that any efforts to minimize or disrupt the safety, the comfort, or the inclusion of any individual, be they student, teacher, or other staff within our Prince William County Schools community will not be tolerated, period. We have too much work to do to continue building world-class student achievement. We need our students in our classes. We need our teachers laser-focused on teaching. And to that end, we are committed to keeping quality within our school system. On to exciting news. I won't get this chance again, so I've got to have a good time. 2 community meetings are scheduled on the proposed boundaries for the new Eastern Prince William Elementary School, currently referred to as Potomac Shores. The first is scheduled for Tuesday, November 22nd at 7 p.m. in the Potomac High School auditorium. The second meeting will be Tuesday, December 6th at 7 p.m. in the Freedom High School auditorium. We ask our community members to come out and participate in those boundary meetings. The Virginia Department of this is so exciting. You will want to applaud. The Virginia Department of Education nominated Occoquan Elementary School for recognition under the National Title I Distinguished Schools Program and will represent Virginia in the Excellence in Serving Special Populations of Students category at the National Title I Conference in February. On behalf of the school board and the administration, I offer congratulations to the Occoquan staff and community. You are an example of a superior Title I school. Moving right along. Many of our students have distinguished themselves in performing arts and music. Theater Festival awards earned during the Virginia Theater Association annual conference included a silver medal for Gainesville Middle School and bronze medals for Reagan and Woodbridge Middle Schools. Gainesville Middle School was ranked among the top 3 middle school winners in the festival. Talented students and musical directors at Battlefield and Forest Park High Schools received invitations to perform at the Virginia Music Educators Association annual conference on November 17th. It is quite rare for choral groups from two schools in the same school division to be selected, so this is an extremely great honor. Parents of 8th grade and high school students are invited to a high school parent summit on Saturday, January 7th at Hilton High School. This is from 8 to 11 a.m. This is an opportunity for parents to hear expert presentations on graduation requirements, financial aid, and scholarships, college admissions, and much more. The attendance is free, but the space is limited. Go to our high school web pages to register beginning on December 1. That will be the hottest event in town. There are also a couple of reminders about program opportunities that I'm pleased to share tonight. The admission process for our School of Practical Nursing at Osborne Park High School begins December 1. Please see the Practical Nursing website for information sessions from 9 to 10 a.m. at Osborne Park, Stonewall Jackson, and Freedom High Schools. In addition, Osborne Park will hold an evening session on all its specialty programs, including the School of Practical Nursing, on December 6 from 6:30 to 8 p.m. An information session for current 10th grade students on the Governor's School at Innovation Park will be held on Saturday, December 3rd at 9 a.m. in the Bull Run Hall on the George Mason campus in Manassas. I encourage all of our students and their families to check out this STEM school listed under high schools on our division website. Dr. Waltz had the honor of attending Mary Williams Elementary School's Salute to Our Veterans tribute. It was an outstanding celebration. He was delighted to be there. The performance by all grade levels, led by music teacher Timothy Wilson, were outstanding. And in conclusion, from the superintendent and staff and your loving deputy, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving. That was exciting.
That was, and that concludes our first and last deputy superintendent's time. Moving on to item 15.01, it's the VSBA Academy Awards. Don't get excited. We can't afford Neil Patrick Harris. This is going to be me doing this. School board members devote many, many hours to serving our children and accomplishing all they need to do as policymakers and funding authority for our school division. All board members, superintendents, clerks, and deputy clerks are automatically enrolled in the Virginia School Boards Association School Board Academy and earn certification points for participation in professional development. Tonight, on behalf of the Virginia School Boards Association, I am pleased to announce awards earned by our board members through the VSBA Academy. The level of recognition is based on the point values earned. Miss Diane Ralston has earned an award of recognition. Miss Ralston, would you please come over here, step forward, please. I will read what is on the certificate for Miss Ralston and then present similar certificates to other board members who have also earned awards. Virginia School Boards Association Award of Recognition. This award is presented to Diane Ralston for your commitment to effective school board governance through your participation in the VSBA Board Academy. Ms. Lori Williams and Clerk of the Board, Ms. Debbie Urban, have earned an award of excellence and a silver pin. Ms. Williams, it says, "Will you please come forward?" So, I have to read what it says. Otherwise, Keith gets mad at me. Ms. Williams. And Ms. Urban, will you please come forward? pardon me. Vice Chairman, Ms. Lily Jesse, Ms. Allison Satterwhite, Mr. Gil Trenum, and Superintendent Dr. Stephen Waltz have all earned an award and an award of honor and a gold pin. Vice Chairman Jesse, would you please step forward? There you go. There's your award.
Thank you.
And Ms. Satterwhite, please step forward. And I will present Dr. Waltz's certificate to Ms. Darlington, only because I want my photograph taken with her. So, you're doing it. It's happening. I did. As you most likely know, Mr. Trenum is temporarily deployed on deployment in Africa, and we thank him for his service, and I will hold his award until his return. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you for your dedicated service to our Prince William County community.
Chairman Sawyers, on behalf of the Virginia School Boards Association, on behalf of Dr. Waltz, I am pleased to present you with an award of recognition for your participation in professional development. On behalf of the school division, Dr. Waltz and our staff, thank you for your dedicated service to our county and commitment to providing a world-class education for all students in Prince William County schools. You may now take another picture with me.
And now for the moment you've all been waiting for, the revision of the hazardous materials policy. This is the second reading. And do we have a motion? I'll make the motion. That the Prince William County School Board approve the revision of policy 403.1, hazardous materials. I never get to make motions. This is fun. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Ralston.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please signify yes by raising your right hand. Thank you.
The vote is 8 yes, unanimous. Motion passed.
Revision of policy 854, naming of school facilities. First reading, Mr. Klein.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Darlington. The policy for naming of school facilities and the associated regulation for your information is provided to you tonight. The primary change to the policy itself is the change which accommodates the revision to allow for the renaming of schools in addition to the naming of schools. In conjunction with the regulation, this includes the following changes, which is, again, school renaming is an official part of the process. We've redefined the number of community meetings. We've revised the language, the preference language, that in the sense of naming individuals, that there would be a preference towards individuals who've made significant contributions to the field of education, particularly within Prince William County, and that would simply be one of the items the board would take into consideration. And again, allow a process for recommendation for names for non-educational support buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Discussion? Questions? Comments? Deep thoughts? No? Thank you. Sorry, I got to get back to the right thing. Pardon. 1 second. Now we're moving on to item 1504, appointment of a student representative on the school board as permitted by Virginia Code 22.1-86.1. Ms. Jesse, Ms. Ralston, Ms. Williams.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Williams.
I move that the Prince William County School Board direct the superintendent to proceed with a recommendation on the process of appointing a student representative to serve in a non-voting advisory capacity to the school board.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Ralston.
I second.
Thank you. Discussion. Ms. Williams.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This has been something that I've been thinking about for a while, approximately 2 years since attending a NSBA conference. I think that it is something that we, as a county, could really use to hear on a regular basis from our student body, since we have such a profound effect on their day-to-day lives, and they spend so much time with us. We don't hear as often as we should from those students, and I'm just really excited about this.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Jessie, then Ms. Ralston.
As indicated at the last board meeting, this is something that I think we both share the same passion for this, and along with Ms. Ralston. So when we submitted this, we submitted it as a group, not because of any other reason than the fact that the three of us have this shared vision. For me, it has always been about student input. I think that even when we win School of Excellence awards, I find it interesting that sometimes people forget to include the people who actually did the work, and that's usually the students. And so I think this is a good beginning for us, and I look forward to obtaining more information from Dr. Waltz, or as I would say, the deputy who is in charge tonight. But I'm very, very pleased that we are moving along this process. And I chatted with Dr. Waltz before asking to put this on the agenda, and it seems like he has a shared vision on this. I just want the Goldilocks kid on here. You know, the Goldilocks kid is the in the middle type of child on, because we tend to we always put the straight A kids, and I'm not saying that straight A kids should not be considered, but I'd like for you to also consider students that are not necessarily in that realm, and make sure that we get some of the average performing, not average performing, but students who have great ideas, but maybe it's not shown in their academic performance. They're very bright kids, and these are the kids that I think we need to hear from, and maybe some that are students that we don't normally put in these positions, but I would like to make sure that we consider all students in the selection process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. Ms. Ralston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For 30 years, I lived in a city where there were 2 students that sat on the school board. And what they brought was something that none of us up here would think about, because they're in it every single day, every day. And it was probably one of the best things that ever happened in that particular school district. I think that whoever we select should be just as well-rounded and not afraid to speak up. And most students aren't afraid to speak up, but I'm just giving them the permission now. So I look forward to this, and you should too, because you'll be surprised at what they might tell you. And they're a whole lot more grown up sometimes than we want to give them credit for. So I thank you. And Deputy, I really expect you to find someone just as wonderful as you are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ralston. Mr. Deutsch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too really like the idea of having a student rep. I have heard from other school divisions where it's been very helpful. The concerns I have are the same that I've had at the last meeting. Is I think we've given the superintendent a lot of education-related work to do, and we need to be careful how loaded we make his plate right now. We actually are policymakers here, and I would like to see actually some of the board members here come forward with their own policy ideas themselves before continuing to load up the superintendent's plate with things that don't directly lead to increasing educational opportunities for students. So would love to see an actual proposal from the board here.
Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. Anyone else? Mr. Walk.
Yeah, I just want to add on a separate note, we talk a lot about the various different the stakeholders involved in the process, and one thing I have heard over the last couple of years, even before I was a school board member, is a group that often does not have representation are the teachers. And so looking at an opportunity or a way for, again, in a non-voting matter or something, to have more of a teacher rep or something to give us at least information. I'm sorry, who's talking? What? It's against the law? Okay, well, no, apparently it's against the law. We'll look into that. But conflict of interest wise, I guess, yes. But basically, my point is figuring out a way whether or not putting a teacher on the board that's different than actually trying to figure out a way to give them more of an active voice on the board, and so something we could look into.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk. And Ms. Satterwhite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Ms. Williams for making sure that we all had a copy of a document that she'd been looking at. It's Sound Out Guide to Students on School Boards, second edition. Ms. Williams, I was looking at that in detail, and there's some really, really good ideas in there. And I'm going to bounce off something Mr. Deutsch said. No, we did not talk about this ahead of time. That I think there's so much in here. I think that the three of you that have proposed this, Ms. Jessie, Ms. Williams, Ms. Ralston, I think you could probably pull out a recommendation for the board from this instead of sending it to Dr. Waltz. And so that would be my recommendation to the board, because there's so many good ideas in here. And, we know that the student can't be a voting member as per Virginia Code. There have been some ideas about having multiple student representatives to involve students from around the county in different high schools. I think that's a great idea. One of my concerns I mentioned last week is that we've had a rocky start. And I'm guessing that this wouldn't start until at the earliest next July. I looked at one of the things that I saw in the Sound Out Guide was a calendar year that started July 1st and ended June 30th, which pretty much follows a student year. So I thought that was a good idea. So I think it's a great idea, and there's a working group that I'm on right now, and there are 2 students involved, and they brought a whole lot to the table. And so I do support this, and I look forward to seeing what you bring forward.
Thank you, Ms. Satterwhite. Ms. Jessie.
The materials from the Sound Out Guide with that Mrs. Williams provided, I provided those materials last week also, and I had read these materials. I don't think that Ms. Williams or Ms. Rawson and I are opposed to providing a skeletal package for the superintendent. It was just my impression that it's the superintendent's staff should have some input or guidance along this line. I think that we can have a discussion with the superintendent, and I'm not opposed to putting something together, but I just did not want to overstep our boundaries and get into the business of what your office normally does. I read all the materials, and it's really good materials, and I think each one of you should have a copy along with what Lori has provided for you. So I don't think that the 3 of us can get together and do anything because it's against the law. Again, a common theme tonight. We can chat with Dr. Waltz about that. Does that make sense to you, Ms.?
It makes sense, Mrs. Jessie, and of course we will follow the direction of the school board and how to proceed.
That is the correct answer, Ms. Darlington.
Thank you. Make sure it's lawful.
Mr. Brand. Sorry, thank you, Ms. Jessie. Mr. Brand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to point out I do support this idea as well. As someone who was lucky enough to teach in a high school classroom in Prince William County Schools for 7 years, I definitely saw firsthand that there are lots of students of lots of different abilities that could bring a lot to this position. So I support it, and in terms of the process, if these ladies need any assistance, I'm more than willing to help in an unofficial, non-meeting capacity. So,
thank you, Mr. Brand. And Ms. Williams.
I just want to let the public know that I also sent the superintendent the same information about school board members, student school board members, so he has a copy as well.
Calling the vote. Those in favor of the motion, please signify yes by raising your right hand. I'm sorry, please hold it up. We've got one. Thank you. Let me mark those. Ms. Satterwhite, you had your hand up, correct? Yes. Okay. I don't want to mess it up here. Those opposed? Mr. Deutsch? And abstaining? I should have everyone. Okay.
The vote is 7 yes, 1 no. Deutsch, motion passed.
Thank you. Moving on. Moving on to 1505. Mr. Brand, Prince William County School Board Code of Ethics.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion that the Prince William County School Board adopt a code of ethics for school board members.
Thank you, Mr. Brand. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Williams.
I'd like to second.
Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Brand?
First of all, I do want to point out and thank Piney Branch Cub Scout Pack 1343 for coming tonight. I wasn't really sure if I really had to say a lot tonight because I think my son kind of said it all for me, and I could remain speechless for the rest of the night. But as someone with a scouting background, and I myself actually went all the way to Eagle Scout, and I consider scouting to be very important. For those of you who know about the Boy Scouts of America and Cub Scouts, you know they have a scout oath and a scout law and things that they follow, things that they believe in. You know, on my honor, a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful. I could keep going, and I probably could. You know, once that's ingrained in your brain, you never forget it. And I see a scout in the audience now who probably can agree with me. So I don't think this is a difficult concept. You know, a lot of other school systems in the local area, at the last meeting I pointed out, Fauquier was one, Loudon was one, have similar documents or guides in place, just things to follow, a code of conduct, a code of ethics for their school board members. And again, we're not perfect. Those folks up here, all of us, we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. But if there's a certain thing on paper, or a certain document on paper, a certain code that we can kind of aspire to or try to live up to, I think that's a positive. Just some reminders of things that we could perhaps do better as individuals and do better as people when it comes to representing Prince William County schools and representing our communities. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Brand. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Brand his sentiments. I think that this provides us a nice foundation to build on. I think one of the things that the school board has done over the course of time is, since I've been an adult, is move us into the future and bring us up to speed where maybe we just, because we were such a bedroom kind of close-knit community county for so many years, and now that we've grown and we're so large, I think that this is just an example of little pieces that maybe because we were so small didn't appear to be as important or as paramount as they really are. And I think this is a great way to show our students and our school family that we're moving forward and we have something to stand on, and we recognize its importance and its value. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Ralston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Code of Ethics gives us really our grounding and our foot, and we can plan it solidly within this. I don't think anybody works without knowing what their guidelines are and where they go. And as a board, I have found it very interesting because of all the things that we do. And I never had thought, or maybe it just didn't come to my mind, that we didn't have one and that had not been approved. So as we do this and go through this, I know we will share it with the community as soon as we have adopted it. And I want you to read it, and then as you read it, keep in mind then what 8 people find themselves into. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you putting this on here.
Thank you, Ms. Ralston. Ms. Jessie.
I wanted to personally thank our legal counsel, Ms. McGowan, for all that you've done to pull us together as a board. We're brand new, and the guidance and direction we received from I guess they were called consultants that came in, they were phenomenal. And I think that I've been in public, and I know that we're a brand-new board, and we're going through some growing pains, but I will tell you that I always look for what I call strands of commonalities. And the strand of commonality that I see in this board is its commitment to student learning. I think we may disagree on a lot of things, and sometimes we may do things that other people do not agree with. We may have lost our television audience because I think we're getting a little bit more together here. But that's I am just excited about having this code of ethics, and I think the one piece that, you know, I've gone to several trainings with the Virginia Board of Education, a School Board Association, and I think the one is number 5 in this code. I think is something that I have tried to adhere to. I do some writing for the Old Bridge Observer, and if you read in my articles, you'll notice that I never talk about school board matters. I generally will talk about student learning, and I work really hard to not be political in those matters. I think it's really important for us to realize that as we communicate, as we get, there's so much now with social media, that we speak as one voice, and that none of us have the power to commit anyone on this board to anything without, we work as one board. And the gentleman talked about politics earlier, and, you know, all of us are politically affiliated, and it influences our thinking, and it has always on this board since I've been here. But I think that at the end of the day, we really need to remind ourselves that our first responsibility is high levels of student learning for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. Mr. Wilk?
Yeah, I'll be real quick. I just want to highlight the fact that this was a collaborative process with all 8 members. And someone mentioned the 5-3 vote that I think actually is happening rarely, but this was an 8-person, no matter partisan lines or not, that we came together and drew up these. So I just want to commend the board on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think obviously, and if no one else wants to go, I'll wrap up here. Yeah, absolutely. Adding to what Mr. Wilkes said, probably our most controversial vote this year was actually unanimous. So 5-3 doesn't necessarily mean controversial, and unanimous doesn't mean non-controversial. So it's certainly, but beyond that, the code of ethics, and I know that I agree with Ms. Jessie. The joint, the training, the board meetings, the discussions that we had certainly helped informing this. So. With Mr. Deutsch, would you like to go?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was going to call the vote, but if you want to speak, go ahead, please. Mr. Deutsch.
Thank you. I think it was a very helpful collaborative process that led to this, and I'm hopeful that this can improve things. We made this over the course of multiple board retreats, and I think a lot of the board really did do a good job working together. In past discussions, though, the chairman pointed out that, you know, a lot of our things could be resolved by us working together and just talking more. And I think the one disappointment in this process is the way that the chairman decided to stay uninvolved in it. And I hope as we pass this code of ethics, we can pass kind of a new leaf as a board, and hopefully we'll have a chairman who wants to be a chairman and lead and set the tone. But not showing up while we were creating this code of ethics was a disappointment.
Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. Although I find your comments unnecessary, I will certainly speak to them. I wasn't able to make that meeting because I had a business meeting that day. I've never missed a board meeting, which, you know, other members have to miss on occasion because life takes over and this is a part-time job. So no, I was not able to make the second retreat because of my business responsibilities didn't let me to be in on a Saturday. But again, shameful. But lack of attending there did not mean my lack of participation. I was certainly in contact with other board members about what was being done and the idea of what was being put to paper, and certainly reviewed them after the time and asked questions of other board members of why they were there and how they got to those conclusions. So, in fact, worked hand on hand with Ms. Satterwhite. We teamed up at the first retreat to cut and paste different board ethics rules that we liked from different committees to put them together. So I was involved in the process. I'm sorry that you took offense to be missing one Saturday meeting, but that's I don't apologize for having to run a business on a Saturday. So with that, I'm going to call the vote. Those in favor of the motion, please signify yes by raising your right hand. Thank you.
The vote is 8 yes, unanimous, motion passed.
Moving right along to Safe Schools Advisory Council appointment. This is mine. I motion that the Prince William County School Board approve the appointment of Andrea Bailey to represent me, Chairman Sawyers, on the Safe Schools Advisory Council for a 2-year term.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Ralston.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Ralston. Discussion? I'll briefly just say for Ms. Bailey, who I've known now for a couple years, that she's devoted. She took a lot of time. I actually asked her a while back on this, and she took a lot of time to think about it to make sure she could devote the time. She knew this was a serious council that needed her time and devotion, and so she called me recently and said that she did think she could do this right and be an active part of this council. So although I asked her a while back and certainly would have taken her yes months ago, I did want to wait because I do think she will be a great asset because she knows her community extremely well. She's very passionate about her community and the school system, and so I'm proud that she was willing to accept this appointment to the Safe Schools Advisory Council. Anyone else? Ms. Jessie.
I also know Ms. Bailey. Actually, she is a member of my church and is very devoted in her capacity as a deaconess in our church and to community. And she is really a community servant. And I know she really did have to take some time because she just commits herself to so many things. And I guess kind of like me, so I guess I shouldn't say anything to her. But she is a wonderful individual, and she'll add much to this particular group. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. Anyone else? Those in favor of the motion, please signify yes by raising your right hand. Thank you.
The vote is 8 yes, unanimous, motion passed.
Moving along to board matters. Not pressuring anybody, but if we get it done within 5 minutes, we can be out of here at 8:30. Mr. Wilk.
Okay, real quick, I want to again reiterate what Deputy Superintendent Darlington. Yes, Darlington. I wanted to say Waltz. I'm sorry. Darlington said we have upcoming boundary meetings Tuesday, November 22nd, Tuesday, December 6th. I've spent a couple weekends knocking in a couple of those neighborhoods affected, Potomac Shores, Eagles Point, to try to encourage people to come out because it does matter. Things will change with the boundaries, and it will be nice to have an elementary to help relieve some of the overcrowding at Swans Creek and Mary Williams. A couple highlights of the last 2 weeks. Flashback to the 80s. I went to Grand Park for their first annual Rubik's Cube competition. That was fun. I want to commend Mary Williams, which has a building of 40% of families that come from military families. Had an impressive, Miss Jessie attended with me as well, at an impressive Veterans Day event last Thursday. Outstanding. Great to be there. I also want to congratulate Principal Cologne for being highlighted in the latest edition of the NAESP publication for the work she's doing in that community. I also want to thank Henderson for inviting me to their parent hat committee last week. That was a great event. Let's see. Thankfully, the election's over, but I did spend 10 hours on Election Day greeting residents in Montclair at the precincts, non-political, just handing out my business card and talking to people about the schools. Very good community there. Enjoyed reconnecting with a lot of residents. Also want to commend all the students across the county. With me alone were 3 different students, high school students who worked the polls, and I'm sure other board members might have seen them at other others, but want to thank the students who were involved either side of the aisle. I think it was commendable that they're involved in the process. And then, of course, I want to thank Robbie Coach for speaking tonight and representing the Forest Park AP students. And I do want to highlight that I did enjoy sitting in the student section with the Green Goonies 2 weeks ago. I was I was with my baby, and I think the whole night the people were like, "Who's the man with the baby?" Like, but I brought the baby. I didn't want them to think I was creeping or something. But once they realized, like, oh, okay, like I know who that guy is, like, you know, random older guy with the baby in the student section. But you know, it was good. And even though the Green Goonies lost the game, it was still a great season for the Bruins, so I want to congratulate them on a great season. And I'm sorry I took a lot. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk. And Mr. Deutsch, your 15 seconds begins now.
Sounds good. In the interest of time, got to go to a really cool writing event at New Directions and participate in some fun creative writing. And also, we had the public hearing on the 13th high school. It was actually fairly well attended, had a lot of good questions from people, got some good feedback, and look forward to keep moving forward with that.
Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. Ms. Satterwhite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take the remainder of his time. It was a pleasure on November 7th to attend the Alternative Education Conference at Pace West. Over 200 educators from Prince William County Schools, Northern Virginia and Maryland were in attendance. Mr. Christian Moore was the guest speaker. He spoke on resilience, and he told us, he said, you know, we can teach our students success, but we have to make sure we teach them resilience for when they fail. Otherwise, we've done them a disservice. And he was a fabulous speaker. He does have books available on Amazon. He was absolutely terrific. Mr. Bixby was there when he spoke. Mr. Mulgrew was also in attendance at the conference, and I hope to hear Mr. Moore again sometime. I want to thank Dr. Lacey, Mr. Eichhorn, and all of those who are involved in planning the conference. I also want to give a thank you to Mrs. McDonald at Pace West for hosting the conference. And yesterday, I was at Battlefield High School for taping my board briefs. And I want to thank the music department for their hospitality. I also want to give a special shout out to Mr. Saunders' freshman orchestra class. Thank them for their patience, their cooperation, and assistance while we were doing my part of the taping. The Battlefield High School PTO is going to be hosting a suicide prevention conference on Monday, November 21st from 7 to 8 o'clock p.m. in the Battlefield High School auditorium. This is going to be presented by the Gainesville Professional Counseling Center. So this is one of those events where it's our community working with our schools to make a difference for our students. So I want to thank the Battlefield PTO for hosting that next Monday night. And I'm looking forward to attending. I know we'll have several staff members who are also going to be attending. Today was National Young Readers Day, and I had the pleasure of reading to students in Mrs. Lanza's first grade class at Mullen Elementary School. They were an absolute delight. We read several books together. When I say together, we really read them together. They were very participatory. We did some anticipating with their reading, had a couple of Caldecott Medal books with some excellent illustrations, and we had a great time together. So thank you to Ms. Lanza's class for the wonderful invitation, and I love getting invitations that look like this. It's a lot of fun. So thank you for their hospitality. Mr. Chairman, that's it for me. I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Ms. Satterwhite. Ms. Jessie.
I also attended the Veterans Day ceremony at Mary Williams, and it was part of the coordination was done by Ms. Shirley Bunch, who I worked with at Vaughn Elementary, and she's one of the teacher aides who went on to get a degree. It took her 10 years to get this degree, a BA degree. She now has a master's, and she says that, I thank you for encouraging me, Mrs. Jessie, to get my degree, but I think I'm going to pass you because I'm going for my doctorate. And I thought, wow, isn't that a good feeling? But she always does a wonderful job, and the entire staff. And I normally do not do this, but I asked my husband to go with me. I just wanted to shout out to my husband, who is a veteran and has been in Vietnam 6 times and has lived to tell about it. And I've lived with this man for a long time, and he follows me to different events. So I thought he was sharing with other people, and somehow I'd forgotten that he had been in Vietnam 6 times. And he is really a servant to this country, and he evacuated the Vietnamese at the end of the war. So it's been a long road, and I just want to say thank you to Mr. Jesse. Well, thank you, guys. You'll like that.
Thank you, Ms. Jessie. Ms. Williams.
I'm not quite sure how to follow that. Considering I know Mr. Jesse, he is awesome. Keep it short and sweet. I just want to send a shout out to Freedom High School's football team. Most people who know me know that I have only recently endeavored into the land of athletics. I am wholeheartedly 100% a book person, and I'm saying you can't. Not that you can't be both. I can't run, so let's just gotta put it out there. Never really took to sports like that, but I'm learning. And I found out recently that the football team out at Freedom High School has just had an amazing year, and they deserve all the recognition that they can get. They usually are not the school you hear about most often when it comes to athletics, and they really deserve the special attention, and I know great things are coming their way. That being said, always during the holiday time, I encourage all of our wonderful students to not stop reading just because you're not in school. I know that you're so tired of me saying that, but reading really is fundamental, and I'm always jealous of you guys because you have like Google where you could just Google whatever you want to read. It just comes up on the screen. You don't have to beg anybody to take you to the library like some of our older people had to do. But anyways, so I hope that you enjoy your holiday season, eat well, fellowship well, and have a nice time, and be safe as always. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Brand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say thank you again to Mr. Marinoble and Cedar Point for inviting me to their Veterans Day celebration on last Thursday. It was definitely a very moving ceremony honoring the parents, grandparents, godparents, and others who are veterans of the United States Armed Forces and have a connection to a student at Cedar Point. I was lucky enough to have a front row seat for the event, but when you're in a room with many veterans who are standing and being recognized, it makes you quickly realize that the people that should have the front row seats are those that serve our country and have served our country in the past. So I do want to give a thank you again to all of our veterans. I want to give congrats to the Brentsville District High School football team for their 51-0 victory in the opening round of the state playoffs. Best wishes to the Tigers as they progress through the playoffs. They are going to have a tough one on Friday night down in Fredericksburg against James Monroe. So hopefully they'll keep rolling along and bring a state title back to the county and the district. I want to give kudos to Mr. Cerrone, the staff, and the family of Piney Branch Elementary School. They recently completed a very successful shoe drive. The Cardinals collected over 1,800 shoes at Piney Branch. The Think Kindness organization, who they're working with this year at Piney Branch, picked up the shoes and will transport them to people in need in Africa. According to Think Kindness, there were more shoes collected at Piney Branch than any other school on the entire East Coast of the United States. So well done, Piney Branch. Thank you. Thank you to the students who contributed artwork to the board meeting room tonight, including students from Brentsville District Schools, Cedar Point, and Westgate. And last but not least, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. It is my favorite holiday. Please enjoy the time with your families, and if you want to, feel free to join me in cheering along my beloved Dallas Cowboys. I'll definitely appreciate it. Thank you.
Just as a reminder, Mr. Brand, board matters is supposed to be a positive thing. Just want to make sure we stay on the same page there. Disappointing. Ms. Ralston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start off by saying happy Thanksgiving. Cook a lot of food and eat a lot of food. It's always a great day the next day. Let me say that, I always like to talk about schools in my district. And then I always name them. Well, I'm not naming them anymore because sometimes they say that I don't mention them. So because I've been trying to do it like this week, the next 2 weeks, I'm not getting there fast enough. So for everybody in the Neabsco district that has a child, or the child attends one of the schools, or the teachers, or the principals, have a good Thanksgiving. The other thing I'd like to remind you that there are families that have nothing and some that only have a little. So if you're a faith person and you belong to a church or a synagogue or a mosque, please remember to give. And we shouldn't just give once a year, but always. So thank you and have a great great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Ms. Ralston. And you stole a little bit of my thunder, but I'm going to repeat it anyway.
Okay.
As I've said many times, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because it combines my two favorite activities, which is cooking and eating. So I always enjoy it. But I have volunteered some time at Miriam's Kitchen, which is down in D.C. And not only do they cook 2 meals a day, Monday through Friday, 52 weeks a year, they also have a mission to end chronic homelessness in Washington, D.C., which is really kind of what caught my attention when I started volunteering my time. Admittedly, being on this board has reduced the time I'm able to go down there and cook, but I do enjoy it because I get to turn my cell phone off for a while and do what they ask me to do. But to add to what Ms. Ralston said, which I think is the important message, it's interesting around the Thanksgiving holidays, these kitchens that cook for people less fortunate, you actually have to be a special volunteer to get Thanksgiving because everybody wants to volunteer around that time. And I want to remind everybody that people are hungry all 52 weeks of the year. If you can, especially children, which is the soft spot in my heart, and don't get me wrong, adults need to eat as well, but I'll say it once and I'll say it again, nobody can do their job well when you're hungry. Students, and their only job when they're in Prince William County Schools is to learn, and if they can't learn properly on an empty stomach. We could fill the classroom with Harvard professors, and it wouldn't matter because ultimately you can't. And our teachers are great, so please don't look at me like that. But you get the idea, and so I do think that any way that you can help, not just during Thanksgiving week and not just during November when it crosses our minds, but all the time, that people need help anytime you can give it. So don't be afraid to lend that helping hand. With that being said, I have a favorite brining recipe for my turkey. If anybody would like to borrow it, I can post it online, and you're welcome to use that. What's that? No, I do not deliver, Miss Jessie. I'm sorry. Unbelievable. It's never enough. It's never, always more. Always more. I'd like to, again, thank Ms. Darlington for sitting in today. Dr. Waltz, if you're listening, I don't think she's changed the nameplate yet. So I think she had Debbie order one. So that is coming on its way. The school board, the reason we're meeting on a Tuesday this month is because the school board is going to the VSBA conference down in Williamsburg for the next couple of days. I know not everybody's able to make it because people have to attend work, and that's certainly understandable. But it's a good conference, even if you're able to make part of it. And so, it's a good conference, and I enjoyed a couple of the two things that I enjoyed last time were the budget and, that was in Richmond. I'm combining. But there was a budget meeting, and there was also the Fairfax presentation I enjoyed on when they moved high school to later. It was an interesting presentation that they put forward last year in Williamsburg when I was chairman-elect. And last but not least, this is more personal, but still worthwhile. Something that I knew very little about. My wife, Jamie, has taken the time over the last several weeks to get the training to be she's now a member of CASA, which is the court-appointed special advocate for children who need help. So I got to go to her swearing-in ceremony today. And Pam Ryan, if you don't know Pam, the wonderful director of that program, they do a wonderful job. They feel a great need for our community in defending those who need defense, the children of our community. So I'm very proud of my wife, Jamie, for doing it, and we'll leave on that note. So congratulations, Jamie, and I'm very proud of you. With no further business before this board, this meeting is adjourned.